Okay, Sonia, what's your second tip for us today, please?
My second tip is be clear, as a teacher, be clear about your career pathway. And what I always think is that there are class teachers who want to stay in the room, in the classroom, and that for me is gold. Those teachers are gold, because we know the research is clear that that is where the difference is made. But I also think that it's those teachers that we want to harness, and how do we ensure that whilst they stay in the classroom, they are supporting our other teachers in a really consistent way, because that is what's going to help our other teachers to get to that place that we need them to be. So I think if we can give our teachers support and advice from senior staff, from other practitioners, about and this is whether or not they want to stay in the classroom or they want to move into leadership. I think we should encourage our teachers to think about that pathway. I think often teachers come into school and as schools, we don't give them the impression that there is a pathway for them. And I think teachers need to know that there is a pathway, whether you want to be classroom-based or whether you want to move into leadership. And I think it's important as a profession that we have that.
It's really interesting, this. I'd like to dig a bit deeper into this, because when I first started teaching, I mean, I'm old these days, so we're talking, whatever, 15, 17 years, God knows when it was. But I didn't really have any interest in pastoral. And as soon as I saw how stressed my head of department was, I had no interest in being a head of department. Now, obviously, I'm talking from a secondary background here.
Yeah.
But the pathway that really interested me was advanced skills teacher, because that sounded to me like the best of all the worlds. I could stay in the classroom, and then one day a week I could go and work with teachers, often in other schools, different levels of experience. And in those few years I did that, I learned so much. But obviously AST doesn't exist anymore. So if you've got teachers who want to stay in the classroom, what is this career pathway, Sonia, for them? Because it can be so tempting, can't it? Because the big money, or the bigger money, is for taking on leadership responsibilities or senior leadership. Yeah, how do we what's in it for teachers who want to stay in the classroom?
And I just think that we need to be clear with teachers who have the skill and the knowledge base in the classroom, and they're making a difference, just how critical they are to our schools. I don't think we give them enough kudos. We are far too quick to push those teachers into leadership, and we take them out of the place where they're making the most impact. So I think we need to value that. Teachers need to understand how valuable they are in the classroom, particularly when they are making a difference. We also need to, I think this is great as maths begin to grow, and we're not a maths, we're not. But one of the things that I've been really passionate about for our school is we did become a teaching school. We encouraged our teachers to become SLEs, supporting other schools. So all those kind of opportunities. It's great that as a research school we've got a role called ELE, which is Evidence Leading Education, and part of their role is to support other teachers with practice as well. So hopefully as maths begin to grow and these new roles around supporting teachers with great classroom practice, hopefully these are becoming there's much more clarity around them. And I just think if we're not valuing our teachers in the classroom, often we're getting leaders who jump out of the classroom far too quickly. And it's not credible. I always say you are at your most credible when you are talking about what you're doing day to day. And when you're a classroom teacher and you are doing that with such passion. And I know this from personal experience, because when I came out of the classroom, I became an English consultant. And I would stand there and talk about things, and people would, they'd give you the side eye, because they were like, as if you're doing it. But as soon as I went back into school, and when I came to St Matthew's, I was the deputy, and I was the teaching deputy, but I was still doing some work for the local authority. And the difference when you talk about your work, and you're talking about what you're doing day to day, teaching, moving children forward, then there's a different level of respect. So I just think we need to value that.
It's fascinating, this. I'll just share a story from secondary, and I'm interested whether this is a thing in primary as well. So certainly secondary maths teachers are like gold dust these days, because there's a recruitment crisis and so on and so forth. So if you're a promising secondary maths teacher, you can have your pick of jobs, basically. So what's happening now is you're getting teachers in their second year of teaching, third year of teaching, or maybe even in their first year of teaching, and they're being offered second in maths department promotions, even heads of department after having only taught for 2 or 3 years. And the problem with that, of course, is you're out the classroom, but also you haven't honed your teaching practice to the current. You don't have that the kind of foundation of experience. And now all of a sudden you've got all these other responsibilities on top of it, so your teaching never develops. But it's so tempting because you're being offered an extra £4,000 a year or £6,000 a year, and so on and so forth. Is that a similar thing in primary, where your good teachers are being lured away by money, or is it not quite as big an issue?
It's probably not as big an issue, but there is a race to the top. And I want to be clear here. I'm not saying, because it's not age, and it's not a stage, it's age. And often you have some really good people who are younger teachers. I'm not taking away from any of that, but I just want to say again that the craft of teaching, the craft of making a difference in the classroom, it's our superpower. That's our teaching superpower. That is our strength. That is our calling card. And if we can talk to others and support others to develop that, because we are practitioners and because we know what we're doing and we know how to make the difference, then we mustn't lose that. And for me, I think we're sometimes in danger of teachers being so focused on this career pathway that part of the pathway is not developed enough.
Yes.
And I think, those teachers who do want to spend time, because often, you're right, you do get people who say, I've been teaching for 15 years and I'm still in the classroom. Bravo to those people, and if they're the ones that actually, how do we use those people? If they are practical, you can talk to others. Are we using them? Have they just become, they're the ones in there? How do we harness that? Because I think it's crucial that we do.
I agree, and that was going to be my final question here, is because that's the flip side of it, isn't it? There's one thing wanting teachers to stay in the classroom and hone their craft, but you want the advantage of that to be shared not just with the kids they teach, but to be spread around the school or even wider. So if as a leader you recognise you've got a teacher who's been teaching for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it may be, 10 years, and yet they haven't had that opportunity or willingness to kind of share their practice, maybe they're modest, maybe they're shy, maybe, and so on and so forth. How as a leader do you bring that out of them? How do you encourage them to share?
And I do think it's up to us as leaders to really, that should be part of our role. We should be looking at our staff on a regular basis. Who is it that we've overlooked? Who is it that we could tap into? Who could work with who to build their confidence, to enable them to do this work and support other teachers? So it is about how do we enhance that. I also think it's great for diversity. I think often we can leave teachers in the classroom because they're not those people who are the ones that we necessarily always move forward. But I think it's a great way of saying that all of our teachers are valued. All of them have got opportunities. It's not just for the chosen few, but it's for everybody. And how do we make sure that balance of teachers is there, that diverse range of teachers is there, that we're giving these opportunities to?
I completely agree. And final point on this, you're making me think so much with this. I'm lucky enough these days to visit loads of schools and work with loads of maths departments. And what I always do, I always spend the first morning visiting as many lessons as I can and making a note of kind of good practice I see. And invariably, all the things that I would want to work with the maths department on, I've seen in these lessons. There's always examples. And the thing is, it's just not shared around. And sometimes I'll speak to the head of department and I'll say, such a person is amazing with mini whiteboards. All right, their questioning is amazing. And they don't know, the head of department doesn't know this. And the rest of the department hasn't had an opportunity to see this. So there is almost a blindness, isn't there? And it's not necessarily senior leadership, it may be at departmental level or whatever. Just the quality of stuff that's going on within classrooms, within your own four walls, and you get the best professional development if you can somehow tap into something that's happening 3 meters away versus calling some expensive consultant and so on. It's frustrating, isn't it?
And I think that's where even if I don't know if we can video sessions, video parts of sessions that we can then use as part of our, particularly in department meetings, where we can see elements of that practice. If we want to move forward mini whiteboards, let's video Craig in his classroom doing that, and then let's all watch it and pull out what we want to see then implemented. So it's finding different ways of doing that, rather than, because sometimes we haven't got opportunities to release people, but are we missing a trick? How do we make sure that we harness that? It's important.